On today's Minute of the Apes, we get Culp and Hoskins, the E1 and E2 of Conquest.
Sounds like a law firm. Culp and Hoskins,
Culp and
attorneys
Hoskins.
at law.
And it's spelled like Hoskyn's.
Oh, jeez.
And Culp is spelled Kolp, like they're like some futuristic last name, as opposed to like McDonald.
Exercise with an ape maker, human down. Then talks. Of the divine bound. We are determined to know what the apes want. War or peace. The only good human is a dead human. And if it is man's destiny one day to be dominated, then oh please God, let him be dominated by such as you.
Welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd. That was Richard talking. Sir. Hey, I'm sorry, could you pay attention?
I'm trying to see what my wife is doing. Oh, she's picking up boxes.
She's picking up boxes.
I was trying to figure out via reflection.
She's picking up boxes you aren't strong enough to pick up.
I picked both those boxes, motherfucker.
That's Sean. It is minute 17, right? We're on Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. Let's hear what's going on with minute 17.
All right, we start minute 17 with Armando saying, he said inhuman, and ends with somebody believing that the male and female talking apes, ... All
right, well, let's listen to this ... moment of conquest of the Planet of the Apes.
I said inhuman. Lousy, inhuman bastards. And by the blessed St. Francis who loved all animals, I meant it. You see, I run a circus.
We know that. From 20 years back.
From the year, Senor Armando, when the two talking apes arrived on Earth and conceived a baby whose survival could have threatened the future of the entire human race.
Mr. Governor, it's my understanding the baby was shot dead with its parents.
Or so it was believed, Mr. McDonald. However, ever since this morning, I'm beginning to wonder if they shot the right baby.
The apes could have switched their baby with one stolen from a zoo.
Or perhaps a circus.
But surely, Mr. Governor, you can't be serious.
Hoskins, the cassette, please. This is a recording of the recommendations made to the then President of the United States by the Chairman of the Presidential Committee.
And we believe that the male and female talking apes.
As minute 17, we have a courtyard's worth of gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans. We have Milo/Caesar, and the planet's worth of humans.
So I do like right away that Armando has done the obvious thing with his story, which is to turn it to inhuman. It's the obvious thing. Probably
That's the closest thing you could get away with.
That's probably the most clever thing that we've got. No, I said inhuman.
But
I was like, genius.
Yeah, and it's almost one of those you kind of feel like he probably should have even known that's what he should have said from the get-go, but
he was panicking.
Do you need help, sweetheart? No. Okay. I know that was riveting podcasting.
I'm watching JJ take a box out the door.
JJ's not a tall woman. How tall is she?
She's 5'4".
Okay. That box was 5'2".
Yeah.
And so when I saw her pick it up, I was like, I just don't want it to be too big for her to pick up.
Girl can lift some weight.
I don't doubt the weight.
She is a CrossFitter.
I don't doubt the weight.
No box going to get in her way.
It was just the fact that the box is almost as big as she is.
Now.
Although I will say this, though. Yesterday, JJ did a partner workout at the CrossFit gym. She goes to CrossFit Odyssey.
And you were her partner.
And I was her partner. And it required burpee box jumps. And
why do they call them burpee box?
Sounds kind of gross, doesn't it?
It does.
It was like indigestion.
Well,
she reaches up and she grabs the giant box that we're going to jump on. And I have to jump on like a 24-inch height. And she has to jump on 20-inch height. It's the same box. We flip it over. She grabs the box and she just stands there for a second. And I look at her and she looks at me and I'm like, do you need help? She's like, you think? And I'm like, well, then why are you holding the box? Just like grab a box, Richard. Don't hold, you make me look like you. It just cracked me up.
Well, all that aside, she did make it out the door. I was just worried because the way she's picking up that box looked bigger than her, and I thought, She's stronger than I am. I don't doubt that.
We don't know what was in it. It might have been just peanuts.
No, it was heavy.
It was heavy.
Yeah.
Knowledge
Anyway,
was
minute
okay,
17. The inhuman nature of it. I kind of almost wish, I think in that moment when they're in the courtyard and we have the lousy human bastards, when he repeats it, I almost feel like that should have been, I said inhuman there. You could still have him saying that, and they say it again. Yeah. And he's like, I said, and I told those guards, I said inhuman. I love the twist, but it should have been done earlier.
Inhuman was nice, and he goes, and he adds the kind of the Armando we expected by the blessed Saint Francis who loved all animals.
Well, you invoke Saint Francis, let him go free. Come on.
And he says, I run a circus. And then we get we suddenly get two agents that are interjected, Culp and Hoskins, and I referenced it to the opening,
right?
But it made me think of E1 and E2.
Yep.
Like we can't just have one authority figure; we have to have two counters that are kind of there. Like Dane likes that idea of like, oh, well, you said this, well, this. I mean, he had the two cops in the last scene.
There's always two: the master and the apprentice.
The back and forth he gives it. So we have these agents that are kind of being threatening. We know that from 20 years back. So they've done their investigation in terms of who Armando is, and then Breck. Has he been identified as the governor yet?
No, I don't know. I don't think
at
this minute we know it's him. No.
We know McDonald is there.
Yeah, we know he's the number one man.
He goes, the year Senior Armando, when the two talking apes arrived on Earth and conceived a baby whose survival could have threatened the future of the human race.
And I'm glad they're not playing like they don't remember any of the stuff.
Right.
And McDonald goes, Mr. Governor, it's my understanding the baby was shot dead with his parents, and Brett kind of comes back, or so it was believed, Mr. McDonald. But since this morning, I've been wondering whether it was the right baby. And I'm like, you mentioned not having that moment in the last scene of impending peril for the two of them. This, to me, was a jump in logic. I immediately thought, does Breck watch Fox News? Does Breck go to Breitbart? Does Breck involved in all the conspiracy theories? Now, we're already establishing this kind of police state, but I still needed that one push to make me believe that Breck is suddenly paranoid and something happened to make him paranoid.
So with all of your stuff before, I think this mixed in spells out why the paranoia of a talking ape is there. The one thing I'm missing is I kept expecting them to mention Hasline. There should have been that the Hasline doctrines or something like that he wrote something that has created this, because it has that feeling that all of his paranoia has seeped through this. Now, I do think that this entire moment is such a great way to do what we've done before, where we've had to retell the story. Mm-hmm. At least this is characters talking about philosophies of the story, and in that they're giving me details that if I've not seen the previous movie, okay, I get that. This at least plays better than what they've done before, right, where we had the moment with the weird statue with the dog and the cat.
I will agree with you that it tells the story and kind of moves it forward. I just needed some understanding of this introduction of this character that was paranoid. We got to see Hasline philosophize for like 20 minutes about why talking apes are bad. And
the pictures and the pictures and the pictures.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Breck is just going right there. And as somebody who's watched the franchise, I'm following what's happening with the storytelling, but I needed the story spelled out just to kind of build the paranoia of this society. I needed more of that. I've seen it, but I don't know why the governor is freaked out about a talking ape. Because it's been 20 years. What side is he going to? What's making him paranoid? Why would we suddenly be worried about a talking ape?
Was there not any sort of genetic testing to make sure that this baby was actually their baby? They've just been wondering maybe if the baby was alive for 20 years?
Well, that's just
how many things can you be, baby, maybe?
If we found out that there's a small facility that actually tests apes for the ability to talk. And that was like...
What they do is they poke them, and if they go, ow, stop it, they know they can talk.
If they inject a needle in their shoulder on the square.
What if we saw something like that? They do a test to verify they don't talk, and that's what builds in the paranoia of talking.
Okay, that would have been a cool opening to this instead of the training sequence if we went around and were testing young apes and poking them...
to see if they could talk.
Yeah, that would have led to something like this.
Some little test that would make why Breck is suddenly paranoid.
Considering Milo could speak like the day he was born, saying "Mama, Mama," yeah, they should be testing every newborn gorilla.
But the baby was shot. Why 20 years later would you suddenly be paranoid the baby wasn't shot? There's no reason why I would believe that they believe the baby didn't
20 years
die.
is a long time for that kind of paranoia. However,
Fester, yeah.
We know. We
we
know.
look at all the hatred that's going along
Yeah.
today. That how those things can emerge.
And Breck is talking to me as if he believes those conspiracy theories. He's not talking to me like an actual reasoned governor of a city that just doesn't want apes to assemble and is worried about labor.
He's Alex Jones.
Again, if they'd mentioned Haslan and McDonald could even be the Haslan has been proven to be a crazy blah blah blah, and then the governor could have proven by whom? What are you listening to? The things anything that he says that could counter that. You could have that in there. And I totally get what you're saying. You need something to at least justify why he's freaked out.
So this scene,
or if it simply mentions 20 years ago we had dogs and cats. Once again, tell that story. 20 years ago, now we're seeing this. Why aren't these theories the next evolution of that?
So if anything, we're dealing with we've introduced a potential villain.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that's what this moment comes out as.
Shit, I don't think there's any.
Well, not potential
to it. It is literally he is ready right there. Hello.
I mean, it already sounds like we're living in a police state with terminate these meetings, and you're not going to have any negotiating rights, and this has to break up in 5 minutes, or people will be taken away.
Even freaking go to the city.
Yeah, because we wouldn't have a movie if he didn't.
True. So anyway, this moment, if anything, introduces a villain, right? And we have Armando who is pleading, and then we have somebody who's kind of rational. Mr. Governor, is my understanding that the baby was shot dead with his parents. And Breckenbeck, so as believed, Mr. McDonald, but this morning I've been wondering whether it was the right baby. So some of that scene that didn't play it out the way we wanted to is now coming back to Breck, and we really needed that played out so we understand why Breck has gone to this point.
Yeah.
We really did need that crowd calling out Caesar, and Caesar responding to that, and the police pulling a flyer up, and Armando saying, I've got to go in and defend you. We really needed that moment. So Culp says the apes could have switched their baby for one stolen from the zoo. Hoskin says, or a circus. And I like this 1 and 2 back and forth that's happening between these two agents, but we're not understanding why they're like just bad cop, bad cop, bad cop. And then we move to Armando saying, but Mr. Governor, you can't be serious. And then we get probably the
awesome
thing
future
ever.
tech.
Yeah, the futurist cassettes. Now, I will say
it looks like a audio cassette that's in their hand. I was like, okay.
But I will say this, go back to 1991.
We did have cassette
tape.
tape.
Really dominant in 1991.
They got this one right.
And you also have to consider what they're showing you is something from the 70s. So technically, this is something from the 70s that they're using in the 90s. So it's,
and they used a cassette, but they used a cassette to play video.
Yeah.
So we think about those giant video reels that were on tape. So we're just going to imagine them shrunk down to a cassette
We know
size.
exactly what you're talking about.
From
that was our
production days of the gigantic reel-to-reel playbacks and whatnot.
So when I was in... so my dad owned a cable company when I was a kid.
Okay.
I was there for a couple of MTV launch parties in Texas. I got one of those swank MTV leather jackets.
All right.
But there was a summer as an intern when I was a college, high school kid, where I actually went to Cablevision and played cable access nonstop. So I got to go to a little room, put those little reels on, and put the giant tapes in. Put those little bars up, and then type in those weird words that would like pop up on a screen to talk about what's happening and
the
things
Chiron
like that.
type
So
stuff.
I got to do one of those in a small little control room, not to the level that you guys did as a job, but using a cassette tape for the future of 1991. But the cassette tape has video. It was a little weird, but at least they were predicting 1991 well in terms of
to the point
technology.
that nobody in that era that looks at that we now with 40 years later can look at it and go, dudes, we had Walkman for that. But in 1971, somebody's looking at that and they've got a little device. They stick in something and it plays back. You're thinking, shit, that's pretty cool. I'd take that in my house.
Well, you think about the fact that they're looking at this. So anyway, it's
kind of a cool, badass looking Death Star cassette player.
So they put a cassette. You guys didn't see this. I mean, if you watch the movie and you're hearing us talk about this, they put a cassette into a desk video set that then kind of plays a small video on a small screen that's a circular kind of globe round. They're playing it on. It's black, and I'm thinking like, okay, so they've figured out how to shrunk down CRTs for 1991.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the gigantic weighted thing.
Yeah.
It's not quite flat screen technology yet, but it's some weird hybrid of those two things that I think actually works for the future.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job with the cassette tape and the random little video monitor that plays back.
It's one of those things where that was a